Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Transfer Portal CFB podcast presented by No Context College Football. I'm your host, Dylan Rubin King. I am joined by Adam and Parker. We're joining now heading into week 8. We're more than halfway into the season. Week 8's already underway. Had some Conference USA action last night. We're recording Wednesday, so Tuesday night had some action already. Jumping into week 8. Guys, how are y'all feeling about the season being halfway through? Does it feel like we're already halfway through?
Not at all. It has flown by way too fast. The fact that we've got you were watching Liberty last night go 7-0. I still feel like we were watching UNC South Carolina on that first Saturday night. To be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I was talking with Josh that we're on the pod, the recap. It feels like it's going so fast, but at the same time, you want more. So I don't want it to end, but at the same time, give me more.
Well, I mean, we're going to
But I
have
do.
football for a while. I mean, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're going to have so much college football from here on out. So that's always going to be fun.
And I think you're seeing a lot of the bigger conference matchups, especially in the Big Ten, are happening late this season. Pac-12 too. So I think that's also what's going to make October, November so fun.
Conference championship contenders are going to be figured out in late October, early November with some of these games. And we've got a few of them this week, but we wanted to ask a couple questions about, stuff that I've personally seen all over Twitter. We want to discuss what the best one-loss team is in the country. A lot of people, when a team loses a game, they kind of write them off like, okay, they're not relevant anymore, or at least for right now, which is never usually the case. We want to talk about which undefeated team is the biggest fraud. A lot of people want to talk about who are the college football playoff contenders. I want to kind of switch it up a little bit. And then the top 3 Heisman frontrunners. I think a lot of people have the same number 1, but when it comes to people behind number 1, I've seen a lot of variance. So I'm curious what you guys have to say. And then we will go into our 10 game picks for this week. So let's jump into the best one loss team in the country. Adam, I have a feeling I know who you're going to say, but I'll ask you anyway.
Well, in my opinion, it's really only 2 options, right? I think Texas or Oregon. On a neutral field, I think Texas would be the favorite. I think they match up well with Oregon. Oregon's strength is their run game. Texas' strength is stopping the run. If I had to pick, if I were a betting man, which I am, I think Oregon is the better team right now, today. I think Oregon is more consistent on offense. I think Bo Nix is a way more consistent quarterback. So as of right now, I think it's very tight. It was very tight. I choose a team that, in my opinion, has the better quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven sport now. So my heart wants to go Texas. But if I were a betting man and I had to bet, I would pick Oregon.
Do you feel the same?
Interesting. I was about to say I feel the same, but I'm flipped because I will take Texas as the best team out of those. Oregon is my close second, and it's interesting how this works out. I am an Oregon fan, and I am picking against them. You Texas picking against them. I do. I look at Texas's defense. Hey, I look at that Oklahoma game and say that Texas, 5 times out of 10 is winning that game. That was a straight coin flip game, and they're going to get their second shot at Oklahoma. And as of right now, at least, I think they're going to end up beating them. So I really think Texas could be sitting there undefeated very easily right now with a really high quality win over Oklahoma. This is the best defense. I'm not as well versed in the Texas fandom, but this is the best defense I can imagine, probably since Mac Brown used to be there in that era that Texas has had, at least maybe from a talent standpoint. Which is what kind of leans me towards Texas. I think the offense is going to end up hitting its stride. It just seems like they need to really put it together for 4 quarters for a couple of games in a row, and they're going to get it going. With Oregon, it's just I worry about the close game decision making from this team and the coaching staff. I think Dan Lanning, people saying that he's not qualified to be a in game managing head coach. That's a little bit overdone, but I do have concerns about when they are playing these tough games down the stretch. They got Utah, Washington, Oregon State, etc. How is Oregon going to fare in those? I think Bo Nix, yes, great quarterback, great numbers. He is somewhat of a byproduct of the system that he's in right now. I'm interested to see, just a side note, on how he fares in the NFL when it's not everything just so drawn up kind of in his favor. I think your point as well, Texas' run defense being a strength. Oregon needs that running game to get that offense going. Otherwise, the rest of it really doesn't work. Neutral field, I would take Texas right now. on each home field, I'd probably take each home team.
I think it's funny that I mean, it's fitting that we're on this pod together and we all agree that Texas and Oregon are unanimously the best one-loss teams in the country. I feel like if I had to pick a third, I'd probably say USC. However, that Notre Dame game and even the games before it, they just have not looked like a top 10 team in the country, especially when Caleb Williams is not playing well, especially when their defense is led by Alex Grinch. Everybody knows that for as long as that man is coaching their defense, they're not going to be competing for national championships. Sorry, USC fans. That's just the way that is. But I definitely agree it's between Texas and Oregon. I think both teams have a loss that's, respectable in the eyes of the college football playoff. I don't really think they have any dings on their resume yet, but Texas's win over Alabama to me trumps anything Oregon has done. Although I would argue that Oregon has probably been the more impressive team on a consistent basis. On a neutral field, I would lean Oregon, but I definitely think Texas has a really good shot. I think the spread would probably be no higher than 3 between the two teams. But I would say the best one loss team in the country right now as it stands is Oregon. But I'm definitely, capable of being convinced otherwise. I think Texas's defense to me is, like you said, it's proved me wrong because I thought Texas's defense might have been a lot of talent without, really putting together a solid product, but they've been one of the better run defenses in the country. And I think they're only going to keep getting better as the season goes on. And Oregon's defense has impressed me too. That was something I wasn't looking forward to seeing was Oregon's defense. But they've shown that they can hang with, some elite offenses in the country. So I definitely think that the two teams are more improved than I thought they would be at this point. But I would take Oregon over Texas as the best one-loss team in the country. Going to the undefeateds, I'm curious which team that has not lost to this point is the biggest fraud. We just saw Liberty last night. They remain undefeated, got a bunch more in the Power Five, Air Force, James Madison in the group of 5. Those are a little hard to compare with the Georgias and Florida States and Penn States, things like that. But do you guys think that one of the bigger, Power 5 teams is a fraud? Or are you looking towards group of 5?
I can start with it. In terms of the group of 5, no, I think they are all legitimate. I think Air Force is legitimately a great team. I think they're going to play the New Year's Six this year. And I think they're going to really impress people when they get on that stage. I think they'll run the table. Liberty, you have concerns about the defense, especially after last night, but with how that offense is running under Chadwell and Salter, I think they are going to be just fine. I do. I look towards the Power 5, and I go for a team that personally just I would love to see win their conference this year and reach that playoff that they haven't been able to crack in a while, but forever. But James Franklin led Penn State. I think they're going to go to Columbus and get humbled this weekend, first and foremost. I think Drew Lar is going to be a star in the future. I don't think he is not at the level yet to where they can walk into Columbus and win and take on this caliber of Michigan team and win. They're going to need a quarterback that can legitimately win them those types of games instead of just not making the mistakes. He might not make the mistakes this weekend, but he's not going to be able to make all the throws necessary to win that type of game. The defense is elite, yes. I also just worry about James Franklin in big games in general. I think you've seen Penn State feast off of a largely underwhelming schedule. You can't point at one win and say, wow, that's a signature one. You've got the Iowa game, yes, but Iowa's a controversial team in its own right with how they're sitting. So I see them going into Ohio State, losing by, we'll get into the picks later, but, double digits at least. And I think they'll end up 10-2, 9-3. It'll be another kind of typical James Franklin Penn State year. And they're building towards something potentially greater next year, but you're still going to lose a lot of NFL talent because, again, that defense is stacked. I don't want to take anything away from that. The running game is great. They've got all the pieces. It's just I don't think it's there yet. And I'm not the biggest James Franklin fan in the world.
Yeah, I was in between two, but I ended up picking Penn State as well for a lot of reasons that Parker said. You just haven't seen it yet. You've seen it in spurts, right? They've gotten better, but I haven't seen them really put together that performance. Like I've seen Florida State do it. Granted, they've also dropped some nuts, but I've seen them turn it on. I haven't seen Penn State turn on. Not saying they can't. I don't think have they ever thrown for over 300 yards. this season? I
Sure,
don't, I
don't think
don't,
so.
I don't think they have. And I'm hearing all this talk about Drew Allers this, Drew Allers that. Maybe it's because the offense they just haven't had to. So I'm not saying that they can't do it. I think they might have to this week. Um, we'll see because Ohio State can be a little iffy. But if I had to pick one team, that's where I'll go with Penn State because again, I'm hearing all these things. What do we have a ranked top 3 in our rankings for a lot of the year, and they really haven't deserved that in my opinion. Hopefully they prove me wrong, but I haven't seen it. I don't think I'll see it this weekend. I agree with Parker. I'm going with Penn State, man.
Yeah. To clarify your point, so Drew Aller had 325 against West Virginia. He has
He
not
did.
had more than 208 in any
Yes.
other game this year.
So it's like, I mean, eh, that's it's not gonna do it for me. I'm sorry.
I definitely thought about Penn State. I think preseason hype, I fell into Penn State a little bit more than I usually do. I'm usually on the board with Parker. I don't love James Franklin, especially when it comes down to playing Ohio State and Michigan. That's the two kryptonites for Penn State historically. I think it'll be the same thing this year. I was thinking preseason they'd probably win one and lose one. Michigan to me looks far and away the best team in the country. Even though Penn State's playing at home, that crowd's probably going to be nuts. I think it's a noon game. But I really want to see how they look against Ohio State in that environment, a place they haven't won in 12 years. I think it's their last 5 times they played in Columbus that they've lost. So I'm with Parker. I don't think that they're capable of beating the Ohio States and the Michigans, but I still think they have a chance of getting on a New Year's Six stage and potentially, putting on a show. I think the offense, when it's at its best, is one of the best in the country. We haven't really seen that. The run game has kind of disappointed, even though I think they're a top 20 rushing offense in the country. We haven't seen Nick Singleton go off. We haven't really seen Katron Allen go off. It seems like it's been kind of quiet. So Ohio State is a huge chance for them to do that. But Penn State's not my pick. I think of the Power Five teams, I'd probably say Penn State, but I'm not super convinced with Liberty yet. I think their offense has surprised me. I think their offense is lighting it up. I love to see it. Defensively, they're very vulnerable. The Sam Houston game, they did not look very good against a very bad team. Middle Tennessee last night? They didn't look very good. I think when they play Western Kentucky next week, I think they're going to get smoked. Personally, I think I really want to see Western Kentucky put it on. I haven't really seen it from them yet. I really think Western Kentucky is going to pull it together and destroy Liberty next week. I think Liberty could probably go, you know, the whole regular season with only losing that game. Looking at their schedule, I think that's the only one. But their schedule is just not that tough. So I would pick Liberty. I think if they get into a bowl game, I could see them probably getting smoked again. I just think Conference USA is just not that strong of a conference. So I don't know. I go back and forth because their offense looks fantastic. I love that Caden Salter's gotten the opportunities to, run away with the offense when last year they were swapping quarterbacks. I don't know. I'm not convinced yet on Liberty.
Let them
So
have their
we
fun,
will see.
Dylan. Let them have their fun. Be
I,
undefeated.
I think it's fun. Yeah, I think they're not going to be undefeated for much longer though.
I will
That's
say, I
how I
want to say
feel.
this real quick. I want to see what Georgia does without Brock Bowers because they're on fraud watch for me too.
Yeah.
I want to see what that offense looks like when they don't have that safety net that gets you 180 yards. You know.
Let's see if
Coming off
those
this bye week, they probably got their two toughest, at least SEC East contenders, Florida and Missouri, in a back to back. That's where you're really going to see. I feel like.
Be looking forward to that.
absolutely. Let's before we jump into our game picks because we've kind of teased those a little bit. Drop me your top 3 Heisman front runners. Adam, let me start with you. Who do you got?
All right, number one, I think is unanimous. If this is your number one, then you're probably a hater. Michael Penix Jr. Obviously, not much to be said about that. He's been lighting it up. Shout out to him. He's proving all the haters wrong. He's been killing it. Number two, I'm gonna go with Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma. I think that Oklahoma team, we saw what they looked like when he was hurt. There's a reason they won what 5 games last year, because he was out and he's back in. I saw him firsthand in person carve up my team. That's people were saying was one of the best defenses in the country, and they didn't look like it only because of him. He looked amazing. So I hit him number 2. I think they have a really easy schedule. They're going to run through the Big 12. They beat Texas again. He's probably going to win a Heisman unless Michael Penix runs the table too. And then number 3, this one was tough. I went with Jordan Travis from Florida State because, again, he already has 2 quality wins. He has Duke coming up. He's gonna get they play UNC, right? No, they don't play UNC. They play UNC in the championship game. But he has Duke. He has Miami. Florida is looking like they might even be a decent team. So I think if he can win those 3 games, it beat UNC. Well, that's my top 3. Michael Penix, Dylan Gabriel, which I don't think a lot of people would have, but shout out to him. He's balling, and Jordan Travis.
Fair enough. I somewhat similar, I suppose. I will start with Penix as well. I mean, from a similar standpoint of watching him carve up my team, but also just when the ball leaves his hand, it's like a flick of the wrist and it's going 50 yards. It's absolutely insane. It is crazy. And also, I mean, the story of him coming back from so many major injuries, you have to respect that as well. Number 2, for me, I think is just a little controversial, but in terms of just value to a team, which I think is what the Heisman should be about, who is the most valuable to their team? Brock Bowers is incredibly valuable, and he's going to fall off of this list these next couple weeks because he's not going to be playing. So I'm going to get him in there while I still can. Brock Bowers, A, game-winning plays against Auburn. B, virtually every Georgia highlight you see nowadays is Brock Bowers. And C, take him away from this team, and where are they at this point? Maybe they're undefeated still, but they're also probably looking at an offense that's averaging about 20, 24 odd points a game, and they're winning a bunch of slugfests. What he brings to the table, I mean, he's now uber experienced. I remember when he was, just starting out, everybody was like, wow, this freshman's doing this. Now he's got experience, under his belt as well. He does so much for Georgia. They involve him in so many ways, and he's so dominant when he does have the ball in his hands. I can't look at any linebacker or much less a safety in the country that can bring him down in the open field right now. The position thing, obviously, he's a tight end. People are going to get Heisman voters, don't like anybody that's not a quarterback. He'll never win it. But I think in terms of value and talent as a player, he is number 2. Number 3, I'm going to agree with that and go Dylan Gabriel in my top 3. I think I've really been – since the UCF days, I thought he was a great quarterback. I think last year was a lot of an adjustment period for him with Oklahoma. And obviously the injuries played a factor as well. But it's such an incredibly talented arm. I mean, great arm talent as well. But I mean, I've said the same thing twice, arm strength as well. And also very mobile in the pocket and can scramble when need to. He's leading a great team, a really balanced offense right now. I like Gabriel at 3. I think that Penix, if he wins out, will end up winning the Heisman. I don't think there's any denial of that. And then Bowers is going to fall off this list. So I do agree that other players are going to have shots if Penix does drop a game, but as of now, he's running away with it.
Oh, I agree, Parker. We would have the same top 3, but I took Brock Bowers' injury into concern, so I had to drop him out.
But yeah, if it was like a final, like projecting the final ranking,
that's what I was doing. The final,
for sure. Yeah.
Sure. What I was mostly asking was at this point, what's your top 3?
Point? Okay, sorry, George Travis, you're out.
Yeah, that's fair. Unanimously, Michael Penix Jr. to me is the number 1, and I feel like you're insane if he's not number 1. I don't really think you can make a case for anybody else to be number 1. And I before I move on from Penix, the thing I want to say is I got to watch him in person in Seattle on Saturday, and I've always felt like there is such a difference between watching a quarterback on TV and in person because you can really tell what they're seeing down the field. You can see their poise in the pocket a lot better than you can in person. And man, he was taking some hits and still delivering dimes. And to me, that is one of the most impressive things that any quarterback can do. He's done it last year. He did it all. He's done it all year this year. Been able to just command the offense under pressure, on the move, whether he's got a clean pocket, it doesn't matter. He just can see the field so well, accurate as anybody in the country. He's just a phenomenal quarterback. So to me, he's far and away my number one. I'm also going with Dylan Gabriel, number two. And I think you could kind of prove even last year how valuable he was, because when you took him off that offense, that was one of the worst offenses in college football. The Texas game, the TCU game, they were terrible without him on the field. And this year, I think they've proven a lot of people wrong, because Oklahoma didn't have a lot of hype coming into the year. And Dylan Gabriel has been balling every single year in that Texas game. Like you said, he tore up a really good defense. Sorry, Adam, but that's as impressive as any individual performance as we've had this year. And so I've got to put him at number two. Number three, I have to put Bo Nix there. And the reason why is because even though they did lose that Washington game, I think you could argue that Bo Nix put up a better performance than Michael Penix. I won't make that argument. I think Penix outplayed him, but Bo Nix was just strike for strike, punch for punch with Michael Penix. And obviously all year long, he's putting up huge numbers. I want to see him continue that against, Washington State this weekend, against USC, against Utah, against Oregon State. If he can keep that up against, as the bigger the opponent gets, I think that if Bo Nix keeps playing, he will be a top three contender, regardless of if they, win the Pac-12 championship or anything like that. If he keeps beating huge, opponents and puts up huge numbers, I could see him being a finalist. I do want people to stop sleeping on Jaden Daniels, though, because he's putting up huge numbers. I know they have 2 losses. I get that. That probably puts him down a lot of people's lists, but his numbers, he has a chance to put up like 4,000 yards, maybe 1,100 rushing yards this year, 40 touchdowns, maybe 50 total. I mean, his numbers alone will be insane this year. So moving on from that, let's jump into our games. I want to wrap it up pretty quickly here. So let's start with Thursday Sunbelt action, James Madison and Marshall. Adam, let's start with you.
Give me JMU, man. Stick with the hot hand. Unless I got to come back in these rankings.
I've been on the JMU bandwagon all year on the Group of Five watch, but I'm hopping off of it this week. I think Marshall suffered a tough loss to Georgia State last week. I think they're going to bounce back. Rasheen Ali's a stud. JMU's incredible. This is probably going to be their only loss of the year, but Marshall also was one of their only 3 losses last year. Maybe they just have the number. I'll go Marshall.
Oh, well, says the guy who literally has James Madison written in on our pick'em sheet.
Oh, I know. I'm changing it. I'm actively going to change it after this. I realize that. Trust me. I've done this before too, where I had to go back and change it because I picked someone on upset.
All right. Well, if James Madison wins, then you can thank Parker for that, because he changed his pick. I like this Marshall team. Defensively, I think they've taken a step back. The last couple of weeks, they've looked extremely vulnerable. James Madison's offense is riding high. I think Jordan McLeod and the JMU offense are going to have a big day on the road. I can't get it out of my head, like Marshall rushing the field against James Madison. I don't know why. I could see it happening. I feel like this could be the game that James Madison does lose. I could easily see that, but I'm still going to ride high with the Dukes this week. We teased this game a little bit. Number 7, Penn State. Number 3, Ohio State at the shoe.
Give me Penn State, man. Give me Penn State. Oh, no. Give me Ohio State. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, what happened?
No. Give me Ohio State. Ohio State at home. Yeah, I don't think we see the same game from JT like last year, but I don't think it'll be close. Ohio State.
Yeah, I've already given my pick and my thoughts. It's Ohio State by 10, 14 plus at least this weekend. I think the ground game has a good rebound for them as well this weekend, despite all the injuries. I think they finally get that going.
Yeah, I really want to pick Penn State, but they've lost, like I said, 10 of the last 11 meetings with Ohio State, last 5 in Columbus. The last couple of times they've kept it fairly close with the Buckeyes at Columbus, but I'm not sure they're there yet. I'm on board with you guys. I'm going with Ohio State by double digits. Air Force, Navy.
I mean, we talked about them a little bit earlier. Air Force, they're legit. I think they're going to end up getting that Group of 5 pick for the New Year 6. So, go with Air Force.
Yeah, there's a slight temptation to pick just like a crazy military academy upset. And if anybody's going to get Air Force, I bet it would be Navy or Army, but they're too good. They are just too complete of a team.
Yeah, let's get weird. Give me Navy. That's all I have written down in my notes. Let's get weird. Give me Navy. I I think Air Force is the best group of 5 team right now. I think that's clear. But it's college football and it's weird and it's service academy football. I'm riding the weirdness of it, so I'm taking Navy. I could see Air Force winning by like 40 at the same time though. But Navy has played very well historically against Air Force in Annapolis, so I could see them winning this one in a weird one. So yeah, let's get crazy here. 17 Tennessee against number 11 Alabama.
Man, what a different game this is gonna be from last
No
year.
kidding.
Last year was what, 52-49? That was a score,
Like
right?
that, yeah.
These
Yep.
I don't think they scored 52. I don't know what the over under is, but
Mm.
if it's anything close to 50, I'm taking that under. I think it's gonna be just a nasty uh running game. Gonna resemble a lot of Big Ten football out there. Well, with that being said, um, I think I'm gonna go with Tennessee. I think
Okay.
Tennessee's defensive front, they're nasty. I think they have 2 players in the top 20 in sacks or tackles for loss or something like that. Alabama's gonna have to run the ball. I think Tennessee's gonna stop it. They get the upset. Rocky Top.
For me, yeah, women and children, avert your eyes. This is going to be a bloodbath. This is a revenge game in Tuscaloosa after Tennessee finally beat Bama for the first time in forever. Bama hates Tennessee, but they had forgotten about that hatred for a little bit because they were dominating them. Now they hate them again, and they're going to be so angry after Tennessee got to smoke the cigars last year and rush that field and had one of the greatest venues or scenes in college football history. Bama's probably going to win this by at least 17 plus. Tennessee's running game.
17?
Yes, Tennessee's running game is great. Their offensive line is solid. That Alabama front can match that though. And Joe Milton on the road when he hasn't been, he's still struggled with the accuracy this season. He hasn't moved the needle at all really. From I haven't seen a lot of improvement from where he was at Michigan to where he is today, frankly. And I just don't see him going on the road and doing that. Milroe's going to get a couple explosive plays. Give me Bama easily.
Yeah, I'm picking Alabama for the same reason, but I do want to go off of the point that Adam was talking about because it's a 48.5 is the over under, which I think is nonsense.
Wow.
But I mean, these two teams are just otherworldly in terms of like this. They're both underwhelming coming into this game. Last year, that was one of the most hype matchups before and after the game happened. Tennessee's been, pretty mid overall. I mean, the running game, yeah, is looked phenomenal. The defense, I think, is improved from last year. I think if they had this defense last year, I think they would have been a much better team. Um, Alabama, again, has not really been as dominant as we've seen them, but I think you nailed it. Joe Milton on the road in Tuscaloosa. I think it's going to be a shit show. Alabama, I think I could see them by 14 plus.
Y'all seen
And they make a
Jalen Miro
statement.
at home in Alabama. Y'all
He's
saw them
gotten
at
so much
home.
better. Since
Yeah,
that Texas
I
game, he's
don't know.
gotten
I
so
watched
much
him
better.
last week play Arkansas, and I was not
I think
impressed.
Oh,
he
I
runs
didn't watch a
circles
second of
around
that.
Tennessee.
You watch that Arkansas game and tell me he's been better. That was
Tennessee's pass rush could be the difference too. They have an incredibly strong.
That's what I
pass
think
rush
it is. I
right
think
now.
they get in his
Maybe,
face. I
yeah,
think it's a little difficult.
that can do it.
Big 12, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. I did not think we'd be picking this game at this point in the season.
I did not either. Shout out to West Virginia. I'm gonna apologize. At the start of the season, I said they were going to win 4 games, and here they are, 4-2. So I'm gonna own up to that. That was disrespectful.
They
That
could still
being
go 4 and
said,
8.
they could still go 4-8. I think they're going to be 4-3 after this week because I'm getting Oklahoma State Cowboys. Ollie Gordon balled out against Kansas. They got them a ranked win. Mike Gundy feels a little bit disrespected. Give me Oklahoma State.
I also have to certainly apologize profusely. Before the season, I actually said that West Virginia would start out 1-4, potentially 1-5, and Neil Brown would be fired by week 6.
Wow.
That's definitely not happening. That I have to give him a ton of credit because he's done one of the greatest just save your job moves and to the start of this season that I've seen from any coach. So props to him. I think Garrett Green's a phenomenal quarterback. Really, I think West Virginia's got just a much brighter future than anybody would have thought before the season started. they're so similar to Oklahoma State and how they've had up and down campaigns, but they're now still sitting kind of in a contending spot in the Big 12. I like West Virginia at home purely. I think this was in Stillwater. I'm probably picking Oklahoma State, but it's going to be close. I think it'll come down to a field goal or something like that late.
Yeah, I actually have to apologize to Oklahoma State because I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the conference. Talent-wise, I thought they were going to be really, really bad. At quarterback, nobody moved me. Alan Bowman's been around forever. Defensively, they have some pieces, but they lost a lot in the portal. I thought they were going to be ripped to shreds in Big 12 play this year. The Kansas game kind of flipped the script for me. I'm very surprised that, first of all, how much they, went pound for pound with Kansas in that one, and then surviving at the end of that. And Ollie Gordon, you mentioned that guy is a star. That was a massive performance. They need to give him the rock in every way possible because he is easily their best player. With that said, I like West Virginia to win in a shootout. I like this West Virginia team. I think it's probably the best savior coaching career job since probably Chip Kelly at UCLA, I'd say. I think he's done a phenomenal job, but I think their toughest games are still in front of them. So the jury, to me, is still partially out, but at this point in the season, they're a lot further than I ever would have thought. But I'm taking West Virginia in this one. Maction, finally a Maction game, a premier Maction game.
Yes.
Toledo, Miami, Ohio.
This one was very close for me. Kind of doing a little strategic pick. I got to get some games back. I'm in last place. I think this is where I can get it back. I'm going with Miami. Somebody named Miami has to win this week. So I'm gonna go with Miami of Ohio. The Miami of
You're in third
Ohio.
to last, by the way. You're not in last place.
Whatever.
It's all the same.
So give me Miami,
um,
Ohio.
yeah, a tough one for me. I mean, yeah, just echoing what Dylan said. Glad to finally have a MAC game that really has some title implications. Miami, Ohio has been incredibly impressive in that conference. I think, it definitely expected to be a contender, but probably not at this level at this point in the season. Brett Gabbard probably having the best season of his career. That being said, Toledo's the more just overall complete team, I think. The 13-6 for Ball State last week, I'm going to for now chalk up to just being a little fluky, getting caught napping a bit. I'm going to think. And I'm going to say they come out here and play a much better game against Miami, Ohio. DeQuan Finn has a more impressive showing. They get it done on the road.
Yeah, Toledo's had to win some in some ugly ways this year. They might have to do it again on Saturday. Somehow, I didn't know this until I read your Group of Five watch article. These two teams haven't played in 12 years. That's crazy to me. I could not believe that. I thought that was a typo.
I kept clicking through, going back. I was like, I keep expecting like 2017, no, 14, no. Like I was stunned.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. So two teams that have never played each other. I mean, these teams, these coaches, all these players have never played each other. I have a feeling this could be maybe the start of a rivalry at the top of the MAC if they schedule each other in the future, because these are, two of the better programs in the MAC. But Toledo right now is the best, and I like them to win in a low scoring affair. Give me the Rockets. Going back to the Big 12, TCU, Kansas State. You want to talk about a flip from last year's matchup? These two teams are nowhere near where they were last year.
Yeah, I still like Kansas State. I still think they have roster wise the third best in the Big 12. I like Will Howard. I like what Colin Klein's doing and all those guys, but TCU scares me because they're Chad Moore's backups tend to light it up, and they look good against BYU last week. They looked terrible 2 weeks before, but this one was tough. Right now, it could change by the time I make my final picks, but right now I'm gonna go with Kansas State because I just talent wise, I think they have easily the third best roster in the Big 12.
Yeah, for me, I find it interesting. It's because TCU and Kansas State respectively took on BYU and Texas Tech last week. BYU and Tech play each other this week as well. I consider it kind of a 14 little playoff to see who's still relevant in the Big 12. Kansas State and TCU in the winners bracket now. I think K-State wins at home. I agree with Adam that their roster is going to kind of show its worth as the season goes on. They've definitely heard the noise, been disappointing so far, but I think they get off started on the right foot with a win here, and I think they rally to win 8, maybe even 9 games. Honestly,
I agree.
And Shout out Avery Johnson, man. Avery Johnson went nuts last week. 5 rushing touchdowns as a true freshman.
Watch
That
out
was
for
a
him
lot
to
of fun
take
to
over
see.
from Will Howard. He
Yeah, I
might
mean,
take over.
or they can just play him, in sort of a two quarterback system. I think that would work. And Avery Jackson, he's got talent throwing the ball too. He's one of the top freshmen coming into the country this season. But I don't know. I like Kansas State as well. I think at home, I like them in Manhattan. Give me Kansas State. I think it's going to be a fun one. I think it could be a shootout, as these two teams always seem to play whenever they face each other. Um, but it's weird. This game has like zero hype after last year's two games were just marquee matchups, some of the most thrilling matchups in the Big 12. Nobody cares this time around. What a change in the last 365 odd days. But yeah, give me Kansas State. ACC, this is one of the big ones this week. Number 16, Duke. Number 4, Florida State.
I mean, this one really depends on Riley Leonard, huh? Is he back or?
That is a great question.
Yeah, just I was looking at our pick and we all have Florida State, but I think if we kind of had some clarity on that, that might change. Right now, that it's really out. As far as I don't think Riley Leonard's going to play, so I'm gonna pick Florida State. If he does play, that might change. But right now, I'm on Florida State.
Yeah, it sounds like Mike Elko said there's a good chance Riley Leonard will be back for Florida State this weekend. But even then, he might be hobbled. I mean, he was on a boot, last week?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's my thing as well. Even if he does play, which I really don't know if he should, it might be kind of rushing it back if he plays for this Florida State game just to kind of see how he can go. But I think he won't be playing at 100%. Duke won't have the offense to be able. Florida State will take away that running game. They won't have the offense to be able to keep pace. I think FSU kind of they get some style points this weekend for the committee.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think getting a ranked win, regardless of if Riley Leonard plays, I still think that Duke team is very talented. But if he's not playing, that team is entirely different. That's not to be debated. And I would like to see Riley Leonard make a heroic comeback just to build to his resume, build to his credibility. I'd like to see him ball out against a really talented Florida State team, but at the same time, I think for his health and for Duke's season and for his draft potential, I'd like to see him sit out just so he doesn't rush it back, hurt it worse. Because I'm not going to lie to you, when he got hurt, I thought he was out for the year. It looked very bad. So the fact that he's even questionable for this week is amazing. But I think Florida State's just too talented, too tough in the trenches. I like Florida State to win this one. I think it could be closer though, with or without Riley Leonard. I think Florida State might win in a slugfest. So we'll see how that one goes. Pac-12, number 14, Utah, number 18, USC. Does USC lose 2 in a row?
Speaking of a quarterback that we don't know is going to play, Cam Rising. I'll be honest, I don't think he plays for the rest of the season. That's the way it's looking. Hopefully he does because that Utah team is fun to watch when I'm out there. I'm gonna go with USC because their backs against the wall. Their season is pretty much on the line now. USC's goal is to make a national championship. That's the only goal. Lincoln Riley, can he rally his troops and get the job done? I think that they answered the bell. The offensive line was kind of called into question. And I think Utah's tough, so we'll see. But I'm gonna roll with Caleb Williams. I think they get it done. Then they get everything figured out, and they get kind of back on the track a little bit.
Yeah, USC will be eliminated from the playoff race, but not this weekend. I think they're finally going to get over that Utah hump. I can't see them going back to back. Caleb Williams is going to play a lot better game this weekend. I think the defense is going to take this one personally just because of what Utah's done to them the past couple of times, and they're going to play a lot better. Because everybody and their mother this week has been against USC, saying Lincoln Riley can never win anything big. Alex Grinch get out. Caleb Williams is fraudulent. They're throwing a lot of stuff out there. I think USC responds well this week. They take down Cameron Rising this Utah that offensively just has too low of a ceiling to go in LA and win.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't think Utah's offense has what it takes to really compete with most teams in the Pac-12 right now without Cameron Rising. The way they're swapping quarterbacks back and forth, they just can't get a rhythm going in the passing offense. Defensively, they're still one of the better teams in the conference. That's not a debate. But I think USC backs against the wall. Everybody talking down on them. I think they have a really good performance. Get that win over Utah that they've been looking for. But after that, I mean, it's still a gauntlet after that. They still have to play Washington in a few weeks. They still have Oregon in a few weeks. I definitely think that this will be a feel-good game for USC to get over that hump, but it's not going to be, it's not going to get much better after that, in my opinion. And then I'm not really sure why we're picking this, but Clemson versus Miami.
I mean, it's kind of like what I said against USC. Your back's against the wall. How are you going to answer? And I think USC will respond. I don't think Miami will. I just haven't seen anything from them. I think their season is pretty much over. I think Clemson is gonna. I'll take Clemson easily in this one. I don't know why we're picking this game either. But
I don't know.
I'm on the same boat. I think Clemson kind of similar team that's heard a lot of the haters. They're gonna lash back against it this weekend. I think they get it done pretty easily, and I think they're gonna rally end of the season, probably run the table as well.
Yeah, I can't comfortably pick Miami to do anything. I picked them to beat A&M. I don't know why, and they won. So cool. But otherwise, I'm taking Clemson and I'm mauling. I think Clemson wins big, and then people start calling for Cristobal's job because the last couple weeks have just been brutal. The North Carolina game, I can't believe they were in it for as long as they were, and then completely fell off in the second half. Yeah, it's bad in Miami right now. And it looked like it was going to get better before that Georgia Tech game. It looked like, okay, they're on the right track here. They're winning games they should win. They're handedly winning games they should win, which they didn't do last year. The team looked better in the trenches. They looked better at the talent positions. Tyler Van Dyke looked better. And then that Georgia Tech game at the very last second ruined their entire season. And that's going to be proven week in and week out. I think they lose by 20 plus at home against Clemson. And you prepare to see some
too, though, huh?
Yeah, prepare to
Like,
see
I
some
feel
shots of the empty Miami Hard Rock Stadium. I have a feeling you're going to see it.
I think whoever loses this game, the media conference, the media coverage around that team,
Oh yeah,
is going to be insane. Because Dabo has some words too for the press and stuff this week.
Dabo was
sure.
saying they should just pick up a couple more losses to get rid of all the bandwagon.
And they go and lose, it's going to be like, okay. So, I don't know.
Well, we'll see if they can get it done. I don't know. I know everybody tuned out of Clemson already, but yeah, I wouldn't sleep on them to, maybe still contend for the not a New Year's Six bowl, that's out of the picture, but a decent bowl game. I think the ACC championship is kind of out of the picture, maybe. I guess if Florida State falls apart, then maybe they have a chance, but maybe they still get into a good bowl, and maybe, people start talking highly on Cade Klubnik for once. It feels like he hasn't gotten that all season long, but I think they're going to win pretty handedly in Miami. All righty. Well, thank you guys for hopping on with us, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm excited to see what goes down in week 8, and we will be back next week to talk how the season, how week 8 went. It hopefully is going to be another crazy, chaotic, upset-filled weekend. So excited to see it. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.